So what is up, guys? You got your boy Stingren here today, and today we are here to talk about Shamane. Now, the big reason why I wanted to talk about this video now instead of doing it around the week that he was going to be released, because I might be busy during that week. There's a lot of RPG games coming out. I'm gonna be for real with y'all. I'm a very honest man. But Persona 3 Reload and Grand Blue Fantasy Relink is dropping that week, so I might be busy with those because I think Grand Blue drops in like I think 4 more days if you pre-order, which I did, and then P3 Reload drops like 3 more days after that. So I will definitely be committing most of my free time to playing those games and enjoying a little bit of RPG. Of course, I will continue to do Reverse 99 content when available, but I'm definitely going to be heavy focused on those games because those are games I've been really excited for because I am a fan of both of those games. So anyway, yeah, enough of my shamelessness aside, we're going to talk about Shamane. And Shamane is going to be the main featured character in the next 1.3 banner, and that is going to be on the 8th of February. So on the 8th of February, that is when he'll be dropping, and you've already seen him in the story. He's an absolute Chad. Like, that's all I gotta say. He's an absolute Chad. But anyway, he's a 6-star beast reality unit, which of course that's our second 6-star beast unit that we've gotten so far, which I think our first was Monalia, so that's really good, or our newest limited one, so to speak. So that's really cool. Anyway, let's go and talk about his skills. So first is his ultimate, which is called the Edict of Admin, which I'm not sure if I'm saying that correctly, but is a mass attack that deals 250% reality damage to all enemies. This attack has a 20% critical rate innate boost effect, which is really cool, and the excess critical rate is converted to critical damage, and it deals an additional 250% reality damage to the main target. So this is one of those rare situations where you have an attack that splashes into other enemies, which is really cool. I do like the fact that his ultimate does splash into the other target. Yes, the target's only gonna take 250 while the main takes 500. It still gives them the ability to basically help chip down on other mobs or other parts of the enemy that can be considered as a threat, while also dealing big damage to the main body. I do think that's what I like about it the most. So it is a really cool thing that it does just splash damage overall. So again, really cool ultimate, no real complaints. It's very potent for what it does. 500% mod on main body, 250 on ads, or whatever you selected, so to speak. So 500 on selected target, 250 on whatever else is available. Pretty good. Next up is his main skill. His main skill is a 1-target attack that deals 0.20% reality damage, and the caster gains 1 stack of Nature's Blessing. Now, we will talk about Nature's Blessing a little bit later because that is the core thing of his kit, but of course we want to get through his skills first, and then we'll talk about Nature's Blessing as we get through the inheritances. So anyway, next up is his unique debuff. This is what a lot of people really like Shamane for, and that is going to be his Spirit Medium. It's not really unique for what it does, but it's just a combination of good things, which does the following. It does damage taken for a max of 30%, and it does both reality and mental shred by 15% for all targets for 2 turns. Now, the sucky part is that I don't like the fact that reality and mental shred is all capped at 15. I would have liked to maybe have seen maybe like a 10, 15, 20, or 15, 20, 25, because we do have reality and mental shred units who do much more, like both Beaconborn and and Baby Blue have shreds that are way higher. Most shred units in the game usually go from anywhere between 25 to 35 to the range of where they are. There are some that are duo units, like Diggers, for example, which I am going to use as an example, but he has the same as 15%, but he has like a different effect attached to his. But the fact that it still does give an additional 30% of damage taken, that's still pretty good. Like, I really do think Spirit Medium is the combination of both Beacorn and Baby Blue in just one skill, which is, I guess that's pretty cool. It's just a weaker it's a weaker Beacorn Baby Blue main debuff for their respective types, Beacorn being reality and Baby Blue being mental, and the damage taken up effect is also attached to Beacorn as well, which is really cool. Now let's talk about his inheritances. For each status down on the target, this attack enjoys the attack enjoys damage dealt plus 8% for a max of 24%. When a caster enters battle, gains 2 stacks of Nature's Blessing. So effectively, he can get up to 24% damage dealt for 3 debuffs on the status down targets, which is fairly easy to do because hypothetically speaking, he gives you the 3. Damage taken is his own debuff, and reality and mental traits are its own debuffs as well. So he effectively gets 24% just out of the gate with his I1 without really not having to do anything at all. So that's really good, and effectively since it's damage dealt up, that means it's just boosted damage all around. It's not specifically to his his incantations. It's not specific to his ultimate. It's just straight up boosted damage. And then he gets a further 8% boost when he enters I2, which is 32% total, which is again fairly good. And his inheritance 3 gets him 1 stack of Nature's Blessing every 2 rounds, right? So this is what I want to talk about, Nature's Blessing. Nature's Blessing is his unique mechanic. And what it does is, it is a stackable debuff with an unlimited stack counter. However, it has the ability to be used whenever its ultimate is proc. So whenever Shamane procs his ultimate, he will consume up to 5 stacks of Nature's Blessing and gives himself a Moxie for each of the consumed stacks. So let's say you have 4 stacks of Nature's Blessing and you pop his ultimate. That means the 4 stacks will be consumed, giving him 4 Moxie altogether. That's effectively what it's about. And that's the really cool thing about Shamane. The really cool thing about Shamane is so long as you're able to really maintain the Nature's Blessing stacks, you can loop his ultimate to allow him to deal more and more damage over time, which is really good. That's really cool. However, once you get past the first initial burst, it does become a little bit slow. You do have access to gaining every other round with the I3. You do start with the initial 2, and you also can get the 2 from here. But once you kind of hit that first burst window, without holding on to previous stacks, then it gets to be a little slow. So if you really want good optimal use of Shamane, you can actually hold the ultimate, because the ultimate technically doesn't really do anything besides damage, right? So you don't necessarily have to pop it. If Shamane was your main carry, he does have things that do allow him to function at the job a little bit better, but that's going to be later towards the portrays, and we'll be talking about whether or not you should go for those or not. But if you're looking for him as like a P0 type of unit, then he definitely functions better as a support, which means you can just focus on a supportive ability and passively gain up those Nature's Blessing stacks over time to then decide, hey, alright, now I'm going to pop my ultimate when I have like 9 stacks of Nature's Blessing, because then he'll come back with 4 stacks afterwards, which then allows him to have the next turn that he has, and he gets ultimate again. Again, it's not like you have to pop his ultimate. It's just damage. Of course, when you're looking at the grand scheme of whether or not you want to deal some good damage or not, then you may feel pressure to do so, especially if you're tight on turns. But if you're really relying on a carry that's really good for the content available for the fight, then I do think that it should be fine. Again, it's just something you hold on to if you feel like you want to hold on to more stacks of the Nature's Blessing, so you can get more utilization of its effect. But that's really just it. I think that's really the only thing that you hold on for, is you hold on to the fact that you want to keep those Nature's Blessings so that you can provide the boost that you need for him to be able to loop his ultimate in a consistent enough function to where it's not going to be too much of a DPT loss over the course of gaining the Nature's Blessing over the course of the next few turns, which again is perfectly suitable for him at P0. That's the thing. At P0, that's perfectly the way you should probably want to play him, is you want to just kind of build up those NB stacks over time, let the stack go every second round, and gain whenever you can when you get a 2-star more of his attacking card. That's really just what you should do. I don't think you should really force the ultimate out if you're on low stats. Next up is going to be his portrays. So what happens is at his P1, he gets an additional stack of Nature's Blessing when he enters the battle. Now, this one actually plays a pretty big important part, because here's the thing. 3 stacks makes it super easy for him to effectively loop it a little bit better, which, I mean, again, it's only for the one-time burst, but you can actually really set up situations where he could be on maybe 8 to 9 stacks of Nature's Blessing, and then you can loop, and then you can loop it back, and then you can have a secondary loop going. That's if you really want to force split and bursting. But if you're looking at it at just as an extra utility tool, then that's what it definitely is. P1 really just helps with the looping. It helps it be a little bit more consistent, and it helps it be a little bit more better. But P2, his additive admin effect changes to critical rate to main target plus 60%. This is huge, and this is what actually turns him into a potential main carry. Now you're probably wondering why. Now remember, when we talked about his ultimate has excess critical rate is converted to critical damage. So if you can really get his critical rate past 100% off this skill, which means just building him a little bit for more crit rate, which really is not hard to do, especially since there's cards that actually give you crit rate. So if you could really find a way to build up past that level with resonances, your cube of choice, that's just going to be extra damage that this ultimate deals, thus helping his damage potential way more than what it is. So that is actually a pretty big one. P3 is apprentice damage changes from 200, 280 to 500. Of course, more main damage. And P4 gives 200% reality to all enemies. Again, fine. P5 is the critical rate to main target is boosted to 100%. That means the main target will always be crit, and that means that excess from the 100% of the crit is going to convert over to critical damage, which of course means easier damage more over time. Now, do I think you should actually wail for Shamane? Now, Shamane actually is a pretty interesting unit to wail for, because while I do think that P0 is ideally fine for him to as a support unit, but P2 opens the door for Shamane to potentially be a main carry for your teams, which is why I do think if you really wanted to use DPS Shamane, then I would say you could go P2. You could go P2. And then you could just be like, all right, that's what I can run. It can be effective this way, and you know, and do it from where you got to do it. But if you ask me, I don't think you need to wail for him, because using him as a support is still really good. The ability, of course, to debuff the enemies for all those debuffs at once is always fantastic. So I do think that if you really want him to be like your carry, which if you don't have someone like Centurion, or you don't have any plans to focus on any other beast reality characters that come in the future, like Spahuthia, for example, then maybe you might want to push it. But with patch 1.4 coming fairly soon, I don't think that's the best idea for most people, because I know a lot of people is going to want 37 and 6. So yeah, but I try not to do these little spoiler things there, but I just said it. Oh well. But anyway, that's what I think. I think that you should either just hold for P0, or if you really love him, then take him to P2, and then you can have him as a DPS carry. Now we're going to talk about recommended cubes, and first things first is going to be the Carrot of Heart. Now this is the unique cube that you can buy from the 1.3 shop, but a lot of people say this is his best in slot, which I don't think is true. The problem with the Carrot of Heart is it really does enforce you to have to be at 3 to 4 stacks of his Moxie every single time for him to do what he has to do. Well, yes, Shamane can do it, but it's not something that's a continuous gain. But the really cool thing about this is that it does give crit rate. It does have a bit of a lowish attack. That 340 isn't the worst. It's not that terrible, but 340 isn't. It's all right, especially when we have like 370, we have 380s in the game, but 340 is absolutely fine to me. But anyway, but crit rate is really the big bonus there, because again, that does help his ultimate, and you do want to give him some crit rate with this build. I do think building him for crit rate is definitely going to be beneficial for his ultimate. So there's that. Next up is going to be Hopscotch. Hopscotch is always really good for an AoE, so yeah. Hopscotch works for him because he can actually effectively beat down on the user, especially if he's the main DPS. I only really recommend Hopscotch on him if he's potentially being your main carry of choice. If he's not being your main carry of choice, then just stick with the Carrot of Heart, honestly, or skip, or we'll talk about another option later on. But this one's really good because it gives him ultimate might up for 32%, which is not bad. I mean, he does enjoy the ultimate might up because he is someone that actually enjoys the damage potential. Next up is going to be Brave New World. Brave New World is on here strictly for the very same reason. It's a very good mod. It's a very good thing that's splashable on really good support DPSs like Shamane. So I do think Brave New World actually does work fairly well for him. And of course, the next ultimate is boosted by an additional 18%, which, I mean, you know, 18% ultimate gain, and then he gets incantation of a skill plus 40%. Not bad, not bad. And the next up is going to be his Bounding Duty. His Bounding Duty actually does help with his support abilities, I'd say. And the big reason why I do think it helps with his support abilities is because it's just straight up damage boost, so you don't have to focus in on either or the other. But you also get a healing effect with his ultimate, which healing with the support is only ever it's a niche. It's definitely a niche, but for someone with him that wants to be dealing damage anyway with his 2-star or above cast of his Apprentice Wisdom, or using his ultimate whenever applicable, and you can actually kill some enemies that way, then it could be something that can actually get a decent turnaround with him. Like, I mean, getting a small heal can be healed for, you know, for what it's worth. You know, it could be potentially nice for him. But again, it's only just an up to him thing. That's really just it. It's not like something that's a dedicated need, but just having flat damage bonus is always appreciated amongst units. But if you want my honest recommendation, I do think that Brave New World is probably going to be the better option. He does have a fun option in Blasphemer of Night, actually, for giving him a similar damage boost up effect, because he has 2 or more negative status he can easily put on enemies. So if you're not using this on someone like your Jessica, or you're not using this on someone else like that, then you can actually throw Blasphemer of Night on him to actually get the damage dealt boost up effect, which, I mean, for what it's worth, can help. It can help. But I do think that this is probably one of the better cubes for him, honestly. Blaster Knight's really good. I do think Carrot is good, provided that you know how to work around his stacks. And Brave New World is probably going to be the better one of the two. Hopscotch, again, is if you really want to go for like the DPS build. If you go for DPS him, then yeah. And his Bounding Duty is just good to splash on because it just has raw damage up, which any unit can appreciate. But now I'm going to have to go over to the question, if should you pull Shamane. Now, honestly, I'm gonna be for real with you on this one. It's a complete maybe. It's a maybe. The real big reason why I'm saying it's a maybe is because of future investment. Now, if you're looking at this from like, oh, I need a debuffer for my Beast Mono, which is something that I want, then yes, pull him, because he's probably one of the better ones we'll be getting. But if you're looking at as an Omni debuffer for a long-term use, then the question becomes iffy. And the big reason why that's the case is because of another unit that does release into the game by the name of Six. If you don't know who Six is, he is pretty much known amongst the community as the Human Band-Aid. And what I mean by the Human Band-Aid is he's a unit that has a flex spot for all teams, especially 4-man teams, because of his ability to act either as a buffer or a debuffer. So it's really hard for me to say without full confidence of that you should pull for Shamane, because if you're like someone who wants that type of unit on their roster for for 4-man content, then I do think that you could probably skip Shamane and then just hold out for 6 instead. But if you want something that's for your beast teams, or you want something that you like him for a story or personal preference, or you need something to really catapult yourself as a debuffer in general, then you could go for Shamane. So I'm gonna just say it's a maybe. Honestly, I think it's a bit of a maybe to pull Shamane. I think it might just be something that is debatable amongst you as the player. For me, I do think that stopping at P0 is fine. Stop at P0 and you just call it a day. I think that's the best part. Go to P0, get him invested into, and then he's all good. But if you want to go a little bit more further, then stopping at P2 is the ideal level that you want to be for a whaling investment. But if you ask me, he's alright. He's an alright unit. I don't think he's mid. I just think he's gonna be at least a decent enough debuffer to maintain team comps. Of course, you can always argue to use Shamane over 6 in places like Limbo, because you won't be able to use 6 in both of your teams, for example. So that might be a potential option there. I mean, might be an option. Might be an option. But anyway, this has been your boy Stingren. I see you guys next time. Peace.